People would say like, oh, Stick to Your Guns isn't a real hardcore band. And just because of who Scott is, he would be like, oh, they're not? Okay, well, I'm just going to wear their shirts all the time now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he almost wore it out of spite because he thinks like, even though he loves hardcore more than anyone I know, he thinks so much of hardcore can be corny that he's almost just like, who the fuck are any of you to say what is corny and what isn't?
Dog or cat? Dog. Dog, 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 dog.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. Spencer, little me would be very excited for what's happening right now. I'm very honored and excited to be welcoming Jesse of Stick to Your Fucking Guns. Dude, this is something I've been looking forward to a long, long time, and the fact that this is happening with the new record feels very, very awesome. So again, very excited to be chatting with you today, and thanks for making some time for me.
Oh, thank you so much. Fuck, you guys are so nice. That's so nice to say. Thank you.
It's definitely the Canadian in me that's probably showing a little bit. But yeah, obviously new Stig record coming down the pipe, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit. But I have to say, one of the very first things that really sold me about who you are as a person was finding a interview that you did with Behind the Ink Pit Cam, and you're on the fucking toilet in the towel. And as someone that grew up in Winnipeg and hearing you just sing the absolute praises of Propaganda, I was like, wow, this is super, super cool. So this feels very full circle for me, and again, I'm just very, very excited to chat with you.
Well, fuck, I appreciate that. And that is so fucking funny because that interview I get asked about so much, but like also like really randomly. It's such a deep cut. You know what I mean? Especially because this was one of my first interviews that I had done, that one you're talking about.
Right.
And the girl was like, oh, tell me about your tattoos or whatever. And I was like, oh, the label gave me a tattoo budget to just get tattooed. So I just got them all at once. And I, of course, joking, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't being serious because that's insane.
Right.
And it exploded. And there was this whole thing in Europe about how I got a tattoo budget and how like the label pays for me to get tattoos and all this crazy shit. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess my sarcasm didn't come through. I think it came through to everybody else, but I don't think it came through to the average European.
Right. Yeah. And signing nowadays, a part of a record label contract to have some kind of tattoo agreement doesn't sound like a bad idea. At least for someone that it's not as accessible for me to get tattooed a lot of the times now. But that doesn't sound like a bad idea. In my opinion.
For sure, at this point with the way labels pay bands, I would just take that money and put it right in my pocket because
don't pay in royalties. If I can get a couple flash pieces throughout the month, that would be good enough. Well, dude, again, before we get into some of the music chats, it's a tradition here for us to do a mandatory bev check to start up the episode. So I joked before we were recording. I was like, I know you're a LaCroix boy, but tell me what you'd be sipping for the episode.
I got Topo Chico here. And it's actually kind of rare that we get this in the house just because it's a little more expensive. But especially now, everything's just fucking expensive. And living in Los Angeles, that's also expensive.
Right.
So anyway, normally it would probably just been a glass of still water from probably not even my tap because my tap's not even safe to drink from. But I had a party with some friends the other night. And so we have some leftover Topos. So
we love the good old leftover bevs from the party before. That's a good choice. That's the straight up version. No grapefruit or fancy stuff in between.
Negative.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, I'm not sure how familiar with the show you are, but we actually have a couple beverage sponsors.
Nice.
Being as into hardcore as I am, I'm also into beverage culture and connoisseuring the bevs as well. So I'm drinking.
What do you got?
So there's a Calgary brewery here called New Level Brewing. So I'm drinking their Guava Lord. So it's like a kind of like, I'm just trying to read the can here. It's pretty much just like a regular straight up beer, but with like a little bit of citrusy ness inside of it. So that's what I'm
Anything with guava for me. I mean, although I don't drink, anything with guava for me is like that's like a go-to. I fucking love that shit.
I feel like it's a very underrated.
It's
fruit.
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm on the beach. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So, Jesse, cheers to you, man. Really excited to do this one with you.
And cheers to you, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Jesse, there's a lot to unpack here, so I want to make sure that we can just be off to the races. But I always ask any new guest that comes on our show to give as much context about how they got into heavy music altogether. So, you've done like more interviews than you could probably recall. So whether you want to do like the shorter version, the super long version, or somewhere in the middle, just tell me a little bit about like your first initial times that you were hearing breakdowns, mosh parts, or whatever you want to, however you want to spin it.
Yeah, sure. So it's really not that romantic of a story in the sense of like it being entirely unique by any means. I just had an older half sister and an older brother who really introduced me to the music. And when I first heard it, I was like so young, and I thought it sucked. I was like, this shit is garbage. My sister was showing me like, Sepultura and Black Flag and Minor Threat, and she loved like Straight Face and like all these really cool fucking bands, Metallica, whatever. And my brother went more of like the skate punk route. He went like NoFX, Propaganda, like you said. And so I eventually when I was old enough to understand like, oh, it's supposed to sound like shit. Like that's part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a very musical household with in the sense of like my family just loved music. There was always music on. And like I loved everything that they were listening to. You know what I mean? Like I loved Bill Withers. I loved fucking Coltrane. I loved fucking Paul Simon. I even loved fucking Simon and Garfunkel. You know what I mean? Like I just loved all this kind of shit. So when I was shown like punk and shit like that, I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like this sucks. But then I would say around like age 12 is when I really started diving in. But it wasn't until though I went to a show, right? Because that's the whole thing. Like that, the live aspect of hardcore music and punk music is what makes it not only just a community, but that it's what makes it really like inclusive. Like the first time I went to a show, I remember being like, who the fuck is even the singer here? You know what I mean? Because there's just people all over the fucking place just bouncing off the walls being crazy. Like I didn't understand. I thought that people were like, I thought the people who were moshing were like in the band. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't understand, you know what I mean? But from that point on, I remember from when I was 12 to on, I was just like, I have to be in as many of these rooms as humanly possible. And so I spent my childhood just driving all over Southern California to go to any and every show. And I'm not, in no way am I doing back in my day. Like I try to avoid that at all costs. But I will say there was a good crew of us from Orange County, like 20 of us, who it didn't matter how big or small the band was or how far away the show was, within reason. If it was a hardcore show or if it was being promoted as a hardcore show, we were fucking there. You know what I mean? And it didn't matter what the band sounded like. It's like, if you called yourself hardcore, we were fucking there. And so that is really what like pushed my education into hardcore music and its principles and, its flaws. Obviously, everything is flawed. And kind of also trying to carve out my personal position of where I wanted to be within the scene. Because for as much as we love to say, oh, hardcore's hardcore, it doesn't matter. Like that's cool and ideal, like in an ideal sense, but everyone has their bands and has their genres that they like. Some people may cross over, some people might not. But it was always more important to me than the sound was were the things all good, were the things that the bands were saying. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I feel like you can understand and give me some empathy with the dogs in the background. I was just listening to one of your interviews where you're like, one of my dogs is barking.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally agree that the aspect of hardcore, it is hearing the music, whether it's through like your older sibling that has something, or it's a friend from school, or you see a TikTok as far as today's day and age.
Right.
I think it's about seeing it live, like
Mm-hmm.
not to do the turnstile pun, like you got to see it live, but you really do to really like understand like the community aspect of it. And I think, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast, it like kind of galvanizes the whole interest. And I think it also pushes out the people that maybe are in it for the wrong reasons, or
Sure.
think that they can only take one piece of it, when it's like you have to take the whole lot, I think.
No, I think so too, and I think that's the whole part of it is like it's even the same. And I hate to compare it to like my organizing like shit that I do outside of Stick to Your Guns as well, but it's like we have to understand that like we tend to sometimes hold ourselves to a higher standard because we are part of this quote unquote counterculture scene, when in reality that doesn't really exist. It's like everything within this culture that we have is a part of the same sick society, like unhealthy, addictive, fucking racist, homophobic, transphobic, like all the shit that we deal with. And we expect the hardcore scene is going to be different from that, but it's like the hardcore scene pulls people from sick society into it. And so it's like, if our society as a whole is sick, we have to know that people who come into our worlds are going to be dealing with those things. And I hope that we can, obviously people who are, there are dangerous people within the hardcore scene, you know what I mean? And I think that those people must be held accountable, no doubt. But I also think that we are starting to, as a hardcore scene, but also as people who are kind of understanding or having a better analysis of society, are starting to understand like, okay, well, let's figure out how to offer people the help that they need, even if that is helping them out of the stupid things they believe.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, I always loved hardcore because it always seemed to me like it was just almost like this self-governing body, and it almost seemed like this self-policing body, which it can be, but like, again, it's flawed. It's a flawed place, no doubt, but that's no reason to give up on it or to walk away from it, because, you know, it does offer a public good. At least that's what I think. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's very easy just to be like, oh, the outside world, but in the inside. But it's like, no,
Right.
like there's a lot of there's overwhelming similarities as far as how the regular world operates and how things in hardcore operate. But I think we kind of put on the scene like PMA glasses, and we just
Of course.
leave it there. But I do like
No,
how
of
you
course.
said that people can come into the space and doing everything that we can to have hardcore be a vessel that people can change behavior, change mindset. I also do a podcast for work, and one of our past guests said something that really stuck with me, where it's like, if you love something, if you care about something enough, like stay around long enough to fix it. I'm loosely kind of saying that there, but.
No, of course. And I think that's a brilliant analysis, because it's not even necessarily staying with it long enough to fix it, but also like staying with it long enough to like see it through. Right.
Yes.
Because all of these organizations or like these counterculture kind of movements are going to be flawed. And I think that you have a lot of people who come in and they're like dogmatic about it for one reason or another. And all that does is it creates this kind of weird like purity that none of us are ever going to be able to meet that criteria, and therefore it holds the movement as a whole back. And so it's like, I think it's important to kind of recognize that it is flawed and kind of talk about these things in public. Like there's a lot of drama, and there's a lot of like gossip, and like, you know what I mean? Like there's like, just, I don't know. There's like a ton of that shit. And not only do I find it uninteresting, I find it distracting to like the larger capacity of what hardcore could be. And here's the thing is like, I know people even still to this day think that like, yo, hardcore, it's not that deep. You know what I mean? But like it was for me. Like when I say it changed my life, it it did. And so it's like, dude, chill. Like, it doesn't, like, hardcore is not a movement to change the world. And it's like that sure, it might not be that to you. You know, but it helped change me. And I know that it has changed other people for the better, you know, but it's also continuing down that path of learning how to change yourself and learning how to interact with people and all that kind of stuff. I'm just super grateful for hardcore. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I feel it in a way that might be deeper than other people. But yeah, so that's why it's always been like extremely important.
Yeah. And I think it's like easy to be like, oh, well, you know, back in the day when hardcore was this, because like the thing is, sonically hardcore ebbs and flows from like genre, like it's still hardcore, but it's like, oh, people are looking at like more beatdown stuff, or like there's lots of like punk hardcore bands that are like getting a lot of spotlight right now. But to me, hardcore is kind of like an umbrella term to like the community, kind of what we were talking about, versus like a specific sound. And you know,
no, totally,
there could be people that disagree with that, but I think it's like it doesn't fall just on one specific thing when it comes to like the meaning side of it. I don't think that, you know, I think there are some bands that like write really like deep and meaningful lyrics, and there are some bands that write just like smack shit talk songs on, you know, on the haters or whatever. But I do think that is just one layer to everything. Like I've heard Joseph from Tsunami say some very like moving things like while they're playing, but I wouldn't say that Tsunami lyrics are like, oh, that really hits me in the feels. You know what I mean?
Well, no, for sure. And that also just goes to show that like the different, like you just said, it's like the different aspects of hardcore, and it's not necessarily that hardcore is inherently this thing that needs to be for social justice or like for political progress, but it does have space for that.
Yes.
Where other things don't have that space. You know what I mean? Like if I just worked at a Dick's Sporting Goods, like I'm not going to be able to just like represent those things in the way that I work. But in hardcore, you can, you know, or if you're a band that's a little bit like, you know, goofier, or if you're a band that's a little bit more like, you know, just like, yeah, I want to talk shit about this and this, like it allows space for that as well. And so I think that's a cool thing.
And I think having too much of anything is just gonna like dilute it and have it be not as impactful. So I think having the diversity of bands, but also like, you know, like someone said like there are some metalcore bands that will just say something at the beginning and then will never speak in between songs for the rest of their set. I think that there's space for that, like you were saying.
Right. Absolutely. Because there's a lot of people who want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of the biggest critiques of 60 Year Guns throughout the years is that I just talk too much on stage.
Well, that's definitely a talking point that I want to get to eventually.
Sure.
I think as far as like breaking down the beginnings of Stick to Your Guns, like you've done so many podcasts about that, but I think one thing that has been really interesting to me, especially when you guys were doing your own like band podcast earlier in the pandemic, was like how there was like a lot of moments, I think, for you where it seemed like there wasn't any gas in the tank for Stick to Your Guns, and you were kind of pushing the vehicle forward. So like, what was like the guiding thing that just kept you going during some of those like earlier years when it was you know, enough is enough? That was the first song that I heard from you guys, and you know, I can't stand that song.
I mean, I definitely still can't stand it for sure. But either way, I think the thing that was keeping pushing me was just like I knew that Stick to Your Guns was going to, or sorry, not was going to, but could achieve ultimately what I wanted. You know what I mean? Like, I think in hindsight, sometimes things weren't as profound to me in the moment as they are when looking back on it. But there was a lot of moments and a lot of decisions that I made when I made the actual decision, it might have just been a decision made out of dumb luck or like laziness or whatever, but it was the right decision to make. And
like what specifically?
like just not giving up on stick to your guns. Like I think a lot of that really, if I'm being just totally mask off honest, was just like, well, what else am I gonna do? Like I'm already this, like by the time Comes from the Heart came out, which is our second album, like we've been a band for like 6 years. You know what I mean? Like we had been a band for a long time and played a lot of shows, and like some decent money was coming in, at least decent enough for me to be able to like support myself, like pay my rent and like, you know, buy food and like just whatever, all the things that I needed to do. So it was a lot of just like, fuck it, let's just keep doing this. And another thing I'm pretty grateful for was like Stick to Your Guns was always that band where like we didn't really receive a ton of love from the hardcore scene specifically. And so we were always forced to go off into these other weird kind of like tours with bands that we're not hardcore bands, you know what I mean? Like we're more so like metal, like that weird, like fashiony metalcore, or like, you know, all the weirdo kind of stuff that happened in those weird, like growing pains days of the like 2006 to 2012 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
when Risecore was the hottest shit.
That it's like that's literally the only bands that we could tour with, because no other hardcore bands would really want to go on tour with us, because they thought either A, we were corny, or B, we weren't really hardcore, or whatever it may be. But what that ended up doing for us is that is what I feel like kept the longevity going, because it's like,
because you made like Forever Fans and like other pockets.
But it's not even for other Forever Fans. Like someone recently, especially with Weapon, when we released Weapon, they said like Stick to Your Guns securing their spot as the hardcore band that brings metalcore kids to hardcore. And it's like, that is literally always what we've been, because we were always the hardcore band on the bill of the weird, you know what I mean? And again, this isn't me trying to shit talk anybody, but it's like we go on tour with like Sky Eats Airplane and I See Stars and all these kinds of bands.
And Born of Osiris.
Like you bet your ass we fucking look like we're Cold as Life. You know what I'm saying? What like Stick to Your Guns looks like Cold as Life on a tour like that.
Right.
So it's like people are like, holy fucking shit, this shit is intense. And then like one of the only bands that believed in us was Terror. And then so when Terror kind of brought us under their wing and took us on tour, that's when we started getting a little bit more credibility as far as like, I don't think they're hardcore, but they're good for hardcore and they're good for the scene, and they're real, like they believe what they say and they're genuine and all this kind of shit. And so, you know, then we would come back and play with Terror, and you would see these like swoopy haired, like kind of like mallcore kids coming because they just saw us with fucking, you know, band X, Y, and Z. And now they're seeing Terror and they're like, wait, it gets even crazier than Stick to Your Guns. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah. And so we always, we view that as a beautiful thing. We like that. You know what I mean?
It was
like
almost, because Terror, this was a few years back, but they did like, they did 3 kind of weekend shows here in Western Canada. And I think watching the videos leading up to those shows, I was like, Scott is always wearing a Stick to Your Guns t-shirt at like every fucking like live event that I would see of them in that year's time. So I think that there was like the commitment, you know, to bring you guys on tour, but it was just like, I'm going to rep these guys at like any kind of hardcore event that I can. And I think that was like, so that was just something that I saw just from, and
that's the
world.
thing.
Yeah.
I really do wonder why Scott went so hard to support us. And I don't know if it's because he believed in us or if he believed in me. Like Scott and I have such a close relationship, but like a part of me almost thinks like Scott would say shit like, oh, so, like people would say like, oh, Stick to Your Guns isn't a real hardcore band. And just because of who Scott is, he would be like, oh, they're not? Okay, well, I'm just going to wear their shirts all the time now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he almost wore it out of spite, right? Because he thinks like, even though he loves hardcore more than anyone I know, he thinks so much of hardcore can be corny that he's almost just like, who the fuck are any of you to say what is corny and what isn't? You know what I mean? Totally. Like Scott's almost like coming from the point of view where he's like, trust me, I remember I've been here long enough, and I remember some of you guys being like, Stick to Your Guns is corny. You know, Scott would be like, I remember you wearing this shirt no more than 3 years ago. Like, so why don't you shut the fuck up? Like, these dudes have been playing shows longer than you've even been going to shows. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, who the fuck are you? So I don't know. Scott really came to bat for us in a way that was like, Really, really cool. And same with like Brendan from Trapped Under Ice and Turnstile. Like him and I have such a close relationship, and he's always been one of those people who've been really supportive of Stick to Your Guns and of me, and just like, I don't know, all of us as members in general. And like, I don't know, there's just always there's like not necessarily bands that came to our side, but like members of bands who were just like, I fuck with these dudes. Like you know what I mean? Like I think it's sick what they're doing. Like, I think it's sick that they're different. And I think it's sick that they're not just like doing what everyone else is doing and all that kind of shit. So
I felt like you guys were one of the very first bands to really get that card dealt to you of like, oh, it's like, even sonically aside, it was almost like you were getting critiqued as far as how big the band was, that it wasn't hardcore anymore. And
but,
and you know,
but that literally only came from playing all those other shows on top of playing hardcore shows.
Right.
But sorry, continue.
But like, yeah, like sonically, I was like, well, it just sounds like hardcore music. I feel like, you know, in a more current day and age, like people are kind of starting to say the same thing about Turnstile. But it's like, even though there's like tons more electronic and pop influence, there's still like hardcore structures, like
right.
And again, I think, you know, going back to the community piece, when you see Turnstile live, it's not like, oh, I saw a rock band live. You're like,
right,
what did I just witness? And then you know, that introduces the question.
100%. And Turnstile getting bigger is only good for every single hardcore band. You know what I mean? And it's just like, people have been trying to rip off hardcore aesthetics since the beginning of time, and punk aesthetics since the beginning of time. You know what I mean? And so it's like, the fact that our music actually exists now in those gigantic spaces, you know what I mean? I feel like that's warranted. It's like if some famous celebrity is going to wear a Black Flag shirt, but like hardcore and punk bands aren't allowed to play, you know, those spaces, it's just like, well, then, yeah, you're just trying to bite the aesthetic and nothing more. Like, you're not actually about the shit. So it's just like, if anything, it's just like Turnstile is showing like, oh yeah, hardcore can actually go into that world that is generally condescending towards hardcore bands. And now they're giving it some validity, you know what I mean? And they're giving it some, like, not that we ever needed that, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like,
but it's a trickle down effect, you know, like, it's I think the first, I don't even know how many like late night shows they've played now, but like the first one or whatever, it's like, oh, this is, you know, this will go down into like some of the other like bands that are really like I feel like it's just a moment away before Knock Loose is now doing this, and then it's like this band and then this band. So
right, for sure.
So that's more of like, you know, we talked a little bit more of like a super past thing as far as like you guys, because I think Stick to Your Guns, in my opinion, is just an undeniable band. Like, you guys are in your lane, you're doing your thing, and you do it really,
thank you,
well.
man. Thank you.
So that's more past stuff. I want to like kind of fast forward a little bit to like more like things that have happened within the last few months. And a photo that kind of circulated on Instagram, but I think you guys actually posted it, was there was a police officer at your guys' booth inspecting or you know, checking out the designs or whatever. I just was curious if you could storytell any about what that was happening and any behind the scenes of that, because I, like, out of context, it's like, oh, but then I'm sure there's like other story elements to that.
Kind of. I mean, really what happened was, it was at the end of the show, and because that was on the Rise Against tour, and so it was like us, Pennywise and Rise Against. And generally when a show is that big, just police are gonna be there. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, there was a police presence every single night. You know, you're talking about 4,000 to 6,000 people a night. It's like, yeah, cops are gonna be there. Even when we played Calgary and we played Edmonton, there were fucking cops as well.
Yeah. There was there was a slight chance that there was gonna be an ultra DIY version of Stick to Your Guns in Edmonton.
I know.
Chris and I were going back and forth. It was like the most like excitement in my chest of like trying to do this, because I think the venue was going to be like only like maybe 200 people, and then you guys ended up getting a whole thing. But I was like, I think, anyways, that's a little sidebar. But anyways,
no, I remember that, because we were literally in Calgary getting ready to drive to Edmonton. It was like, show's canceled. We're like, fuck, dude, what can we do? But anyway, yeah, so there was a cop there, and it was our merch guy who actually came and took the photo. And Joe, our merch guy, walked back to the photo booth and just saw him standing there looking at that shirt that we have, which is like it's a Kinks ripoff, but it just says Stick to Your Guns, and there's a Blue Lives Matter there's the thin blue line flag being burned.
Right.
And so it was a perfect photo opportunity for that. And it caused a lot of, craziness online, obviously. But yeah, that was a very funny image. And it's, it kind of caused a situation every night having that shirt, but like, it was also our number one seller of the entire tour. So it's like,
right.
I think more and more people are starting to see that for what it is. But yeah, that was a very funny moment in which we were just like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah. But like, it's funny that you're like, it caused the most maybe grief of like people just pulling you through the comments section, but it was the best seller at the same time. So like,
right.
And I'm only thinking about this because I just put out an episode with Braxton, who's the guitar player of Zulu, and we were talking about the when they did the abolish white hardcore t-shirt.
Yeah.
And just like the minute I posted it, like not even 5 minutes later, someone's like, "Great band, shirt sucks," and then it's just like, just the comments are just going insane. So it's like this weird thing, like we're saying about it's a community, but like having these conversations out in public is like super necessary, because otherwise people are just going to stay on their phones and just, communicate through their thumbs. So,
well, yeah. And it's like, that's what I always say, right? There's a difference. Like, people get mad at me now. They're like, you used to be about peace and love and unity, and now you're only about dividing people. It's like, what is a belief? Like, this system that we have currently in place, they love for you to have all sorts of beliefs, but they want you to keep your beliefs right in here. They want you to keep them in your head. They want you to believe that Black Lives Matter in your brain. They want you to believe that indigenous folks should get their land back in your brain. They want you to believe in all that shit. They want you to keep it up here. They don't want you to bring it out into the real world. They don't want you to act on those things. And the second you start acting on those things is when people in this white supremacist system that you and I benefit from, once you start acting on that, that's when people start really getting mad. Once you start actually challenging power, that's when people start getting mad. Beliefs don't do shit. Right. Belief is just a thing that you think that makes you feel something. And, that whole like abolish white hardcore shirt, it's like, I fucking loved that. I thought it was fucking hilarious. And it's just like, the whole like shirt's cool, but this sucks. It's like, no, like, people need to understand race. Like, the hardcore scene today is racist as fuck. It is. There's no getting around it. We can talk about non-racism all day long. We can talk about, oh, this is what hardcore is. It's about this, and this, and that. No, fuck that. It isn't. It's not. It's like what we were talking about earlier. It's just a smaller microcosm of the world that believes it's a counterculture. And unless we're willing to talk about these things, unless we're willing to talk about racism and the way that we all benefit off racism, and the way that we, and when I say we, I just mean white people in general. If we're not able to talk or able to let Zulu have one moment where they're able to say what they fucking need to say as Black people who are actually experiencing the hardcore scene, and as Black people who are actually experiencing what life is like in America, and then for someone to immediately, like, we have to stop being so soft. You know what I mean? Like, I bring up words like privilege, and I bring up words like, like all these kind of trigger words for people where it's like, well, I'm not, it's like, shut up. I'm not talking about you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a bigger thing beyond you. And I feel like a lot of people don't want to like take the time to even listen, because, and I notice this all the time. I organize with people of all sorts of different colors. And it's like, they deal with getting called something racist so much better than a white person being called racist. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's amazing to me, like what I will literally witness in front of my eyes. And like, people I organize with who are literally getting called racist shit to their face, and they just laugh it off. And then someone just goes like, oh yeah, white people are racist. And it's like, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Like the minute that someone's being called a colonizer is like, well, not me.
Right. Yeah. It's like, that is right there. You can tell that's power being challenged, and that is your visceral, not yours, but that's the visceral reaction coming out to instantly need to defend oneself. Yeah. And if you truly didn't feel like, well, not me, then you wouldn't say anything. You know what I mean? Like, anytime if I'm watching a show about how priests rape little kids, I don't need to like nudge my girlfriend on the couch and be like, but not me though. Like, no, I just watch it. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I don't need to do that every
Just
time.
for the record, not me.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I know that I don't abuse children.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So seeing that, and for someone to be like, oh yeah, it's actually a lot of white men who do this. I don't need to be like, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me to everyone, because I know that I don't. And so it's like, you see these visceral reactions from white people when someone of color says the most small, basic thing, and they have this like temper tantrum. It's just like, all right, well, you don't get it. You don't fucking get it. You know what I mean? And again, but these are the things that we all need to be talking about. You know what I mean? And it's just like, people don't want to talk about them because they think that like talking about race is political. It's like, yeah, it is. But so is everything. Everything is political. And we all need to start getting political. You know what I mean? Because your landlord is political. The cops are political. Fucking people who run our lives are the most political motherfuckers on the planet. And if you want to have any sort of chance as to challenging that power, we're going to have to get together and get political. I'm sorry. This is just the facts. These are not my opinions.
So one of the questions I had is like,
Sure.
Like you said, you feel like in the last couple of years you've gotten a ton of well, maybe even not in just the last couple of years. Like you've taken a stand on a lot of things, and I think that has attracted a lot of people to your band, to who you are as a person. But also, there's people who are like, "Fuck this guy," disagree,
Yeah, sure,
or whatever.
sure.
What
Yeah.
has been maybe something that someone has pushed back on you? So this is kind of a twofold. What's something that someone's pushed back on you that you took a beat and you're like, you're actually right, and I need to like reframe that or do that? And what's been the one thing that's been like, this has been the most out to lunch take I've ever heard?
First, the out to lunch take that I get is
that one's probably easier.
Yeah, it's incredibly easy. Is that America is a democracy? It's just like that's just straight up and down. It's just like there's literally no evidence to even support that claim. Like, we live in a two-party dictatorship that only serves one class's interests, and everyone else can kick fucking rocks. And the way you can describe this, your freedom is, and it's very similar in Canada as well, but your freedom is based upon how close your relationship to consumer goods are. And what I mean by that is basically, if you're living in America and you have no money, what freedom do you have? You can't go anywhere. You can't get food. You're sleeping outside. You can't get medical attention. You're just a person wandering the streets like a fucking zombie. And we wonder why people who are experiencing homelessness are meant to have all of the mental illnesses that they have. We all would have those same things. And so it's like, America is not democracy no matter what. It doesn't bring democracy anywhere. It's never been on the right side of a fight. Even if it has, like in World War II, it was doing to Black people in America pretty much almost what Hitler was fucking doing to Jewish people in Germany. So this idea that like, we went over to Germany to fight the good fight. It's like, no. War is for profits, and that's it. And that's what it's always been for America, always. And so anytime you hear that we're bringing democracy somewhere, or that we're going to fight for the little guy, it's garbage, and it's complete bullshit. The thing that I feel like I need to work on with myself is my reactions and the way that I speak to people. Because sometimes people will come at me so hard, and I kind of have a policy of, whatever energy you're going to come at me with is what I'm going to meet you at.
I'm going to be a mirror in that way.
Right. Exactly. So if you want to come getting gnarly, I will get fucking gnarly. You know what I mean? And I have to work on that for many different things. Because if I believe in socialism as much as I do, that burden of proof falls on me. It doesn't fall on anyone else. I can't pull people to me. I have to meet people where they are. And I have to try to convince them that all of us together are stronger in fighting back against the ruling class. That's what I have to convince. And so when I get gnarly, or meet people who are reactionaries, or meet people who are having emotional reactions to something that I say, I have to try to cool myself down and understand where they're coming from. Now, I shouldn't go so hard on myself, because the revolution is not going to be fought within the comment sections of a tweet or Instagram post. But like, still,
it was
like,
at this moment that
but really, like I do, like I have to chill the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the bottom line. As far as like things that I feel like I've specifically been wrong about, I would have to think about it, and that's not because I'm always right about everything, but like, you know, I have to really think about things where I was just like, oh, okay, I see where you're coming from, and I can see how what I was said was maybe misconstrued, or how maybe what I was said was misinformed, or this, that, and the other. But normally with a person like me is I have my own process that's like I call it my process of self-loathing. And normally by the time something comes out of my mouth, I've already been sitting and stewing on it for about 6 months.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, generally I try to be a person where it's like, okay, if I'm going to say this, if I'm going to go public with this, it means I have to know that I've done my research.
Sure.
And I have to know that I know what I'm talking about. And I have to know that like I've done enough due diligence that I'm not just like going online and spouting nonsense for no reason whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like I have to be based in reality.
Yeah.
And like material reality. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Has there I'm guessing there's just been a lot of those kind of moments more online, but is there any like things that have happened at a show or having a conversation with someone that like has really like stuck with you, and that could just be like the conversation was really enriching, or just that person was just very open about like, this is how I feel about something. You couldn't, it's kind of that classic thing like, come talk to us after the show if you disagree, but like,
oh sure
how many of those moments have actually happened and come to like a positive kind of resolution?
I more so get that at the bookstore, because I'm there at the bookstore. I run that bookstore. Hey buddy.
Yeah, this is my instigator dog.
I love it. Just knock the door open. So
Yeah.
good. So
It's funny. My another one is like, I will not move anything with my face. It's total opposite.
Yeah, that's how my pit bull Blue is. He's like literally laying at the door, and the door's open, but it's not enough for his body to walk through.
Like, I'm
so
trapped.
exactly. He's like, I'm just like, dude, just push it, and he won't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's more so happened at the bookstore that I run, just because we are an outwardly front-facing socialist bookstore.
Right.
But we serve all sorts of people, mostly non-communists, because we do produce drives, we do school supply drives, we have a free medical clinic, we do educational programs, like we do all sorts of shit, working with the community. And this is America, you know what I mean? So it has a very staunch anti-communist campaign that's been run against its citizens for, you know, anti-communism is an industry in America. The government and corporations spend billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars running campaigns against communists and communism. So, you know, that once, you know, realizing this was like, oh, I wonder why they're spending all this money on this shit. And it's almost like they have an interest in not letting people know the truth about this shit. But anyway, yeah, and just like having those kinds of conversations with people, but like, you know, we actually have a pretty good relationship now with everybody in our neighborhood, because they're able to see the consistent service, and they're able to see our that we walk what we talk, and it has made them be more open to all of these ideas. Because half the time, as a socialist, my whole thing that people want to know is just defending communist history or defending current socialist projects. And the reason I call them socialist projects and not communist countries is because there are no communist countries. There's only countries who are on the way to becoming that. Cuba, Vietnam, China, Venezuela, and now many areas of the global South. But either way, people are like, oh, if communism's so good, then how come in Cuba it's like this, and it's just like, oh my God. And so then I got to go and explain to them first all of Cuban history, because they know nothing about it. These are things that I've been studying for the last 5 to 6 years of my life. And I even just got back from a trip from Cuba where I went on an educational trip there. But you know, it's this is where the holdup comes from. Is like, people don't want to fight for a better world simply because they're too afraid that it's communist. You know what I mean? And
is that more so is like the word is misunderstood, or it sounds scary kind of?
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just people, if you ask the average person, hey, what is socialism and what is communism? No one's going to be able to tell you what it is,
Right.
just because it's just like, oh, I've just been told by a million people that it's bad. Or I know someone from Venezuela, or I know someone from Vietnam, or I know someone from China, or I know someone from Cuba, and they say it's bad. So I'm just going to take their word for it.
Mhm.
And it's just like, that's just so unfortunate. It's unfortunate. You know what I mean? And I'll give you an example really quick of actually a conversation I had with someone in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, keep it Canadian.
Exactly.
and
We'll
I'm
keep it
game.
Canadian. So someone came to me and was like, yeah, it just sucks because like what's happening to the housing market in Vancouver right now is basically you're getting all these Chinese billionaires who are coming over here and buying up all the properties for like investments and shit. But like but they're not like, so that's why rent is so high. That's why like housing is so expensive. That's why all these things. And it's like, okay, so then what are you saying to me? They're like, yeah, well, China's trying to take over and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, look, you can't have it both ways. And this person was like, well, what do you mean? It's like, do you know why Chinese billionaires are coming and doing this in Vancouver and buying up all your property and buying up all your storefronts and buying up all this shit and keeping it all empty? Do you know why they're doing that here? And he's like, well, why? It's like, because they're not allowed to do that in China. Because China knows that if you just give billionaires unbridled access to housing and medical and all these other infrastructures that work towards the public good, they're going to take advantage of that in search of more and more profit. You know what I mean? And he's just like, well, it's just like people get into these weird things. It's like, yes, of course, Chinese billionaires are doing that in LA too. But it's simply because they aren't allowed to do that in China, because China has a policy that doesn't allow for that kind of behavior, because that kind of behavior doesn't serve a public good. It doesn't. And I'm not this again, China is not a perfect place. It is not by any means, but they are well on their way. And you were able to, there's this amazing quote that I forget who even said it, but the person's like, you are attentive to what you measure. And right now, while the US is attentive to war in Ukraine, war with Cuba, war with Venezuela, war with China, war with Somalia, war with Syria, war with Turkey, that's what they're attentive to. Whereas China is trying to pull people out of fucking poverty and is trying to get its youth interested in sciences and technology and trying to, you know what I mean? It's like, the signs are so clear in front of you. We're all just so susceptible to empire's propaganda that all someone has to do is get on Fox News or get on MSNBC and say China is curing cancer, but at what cost? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like shit like this. It's like, oh my God. And then us like idiots go, yeah, what cost? It's like, dude, come on. Like, why are we even concerned about what China's doing? They don't want to go to war. They don't want to go to war with anybody. They have one military base in Africa. The US has 400 around China alone. You know what I mean? And we dare call China the aggressors. It's like, oh, China shouldn't have put its country so close to our 400 military base. It's like, dude, shut up. We are there. We are the aggressors. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like that kind of shit and trying to get that through to people. Mm-hmm. But people have internalized this system so much that they think it's actually them. They think it's a part of them. That if I criticize America, that I'm criticizing them. If I criticize capitalism, I'm criticizing them. It's like, no, I'm trying to fight for something better and not so fucking deranged, dude. Mm-hmm. It's insane. It's insane. Sorry to rant at you.
No. It's again, I think if it was anywhere but Vancouver, then I'd be like, oh, this is going a little longer. But no, that's all good. I want to do a total topic change.
100%. Let's do
it. This is a question that I ask any guest that has like a big breadth of work or a large discography as far as any bands that come on. And this is going to put you a little bit on the hot seat, so I hope you're ready for it.
Let's do it.
What is the most overrated Stick to Your Gun song, and what is the most underrated Stick to Your Gun song? And why?
Yeah, fuck. That's a great question. I would say an underrated one. I don't know if I can do songs. I think I could do albums. Can I start with an album and then do songs?
Sure. I'll allow
that. Okay. The most underrated, I think, album we have is our EP, Better Ash Than Dust, which I think is one of my favorite collected Stick to Your Guns works that currently exists, with the exception of Spectre. Like that EP was so like, I feel like we just did such an awesome job on it, songwriting and like message wise. And I would even say maybe an album off of there. A song off of there that's really underrated is my God, dude! I have
You've
to look up
written enough songs. I'll allow you to
called,
Spotify
dude.
cheat.
Let's see. It's actually with Brendan from Counterparts. He's on the song.
Shout out to Brendan, friend of the show.
And we recorded it in Toronto, actually.
Oh,
the EP, yeah.
You're just really singing my Canadian praises.
Yeah, I lived in Montreal for a couple of years.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, oh, I knew that Chris being, the 1/5 of Stig, but then you were living in Montreal. I was like, oh, we're like so close to having a Canadian majority in this band.
We joked about that constantly. We need one more Canadian and we'll have majority. But yeah,
like
Universal Language is the song that I think is that I feel like could have been, if it was a part of an actual album rollout, I feel like that could have been like a staple song that we have to play in our set. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty underrated one. And I think an overrated one would be like, and then again, I think the only reason why I would call it overrated is just because I've just played it so much.
Right.
Would either be a song like, I mean, obviously, like that song "This Is More" that everybody freaks out about, like the Move song is just like garbage. Exactly, that's just garbage.
Anytime I think about that song, I think of like any of the merch spreads that are like 17 hoodies that all same.
Fucking incredible, dude. But yeah, either that song or like a song like I don't know, maybe Amber. I would say maybe Amber, even though so many people really love that song. When I play it live, I'm like, fuck yeah, this is so sick. But like, I think it's actually, I don't know. I take that back. I don't think it's underrated.
I would challenge you to say Amber is properly rated.
Yeah, exactly. Because honestly, when we wrote Amber, we were all really proud of the song. And it's like, it was never a song where we were like, why is this one? Like, you know what I mean? It was never anything like that.
Right.
But I would honestly say anything off of the first two albums is overrated because it's just like, we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. And like, we didn't care. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We didn't care so much about like the music as we did like, oh, it's just fun to go on tour. It's almost like we were in a mentality of like, let's just write albums to tour. You know what I mean? It wasn't about like the music. It was just like, let's just do this so we can go on tour.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that.
I'm trying to remember what Chris said when I asked him this question because it kind of like puts it in the hot seat. And again, it could be so different member to member. I remember when I asked this question to Andrew from Comeback Kid, his answers were totally different to Stu because he's like, yeah, I could never play Partners in Crime because that's a pretty boring song and guitar to play. So
sure.
Yeah.
I got one.
Yes.
We Still Believe. Completely overrated song.
You know what? I kind of felt that, but I didn't want to. I felt like weird just being like, I think this song is overrated, and be like,
no,
well,
for sure. That's for sure.
I think it's there.
That's a for sure one. That's for sure one where we put it out and we're just like, I don't know about this. And really, we don't ever play it in the States because people in the States don't give a fuck about it, and in Europe they fucking love it. So we generally play it there more. But even recently, we don't play it that much anymore in Europe anymore. So I would say with confidence, I would say We Still Believe for sure.
Is like, can you really even break down like why a European scene just really gravitates to certain songs that like in the States it isn't? Is it more like, oh, these songs have more choruses or these parts are like shorter? I've never really actually asked that question.
That's a good question. I can't speak for everybody, but I think Europe likes when hardcore songs are taken seriously. Like when they have almost like, how can I say this? Pop, not influence, like we're influenced by pop, but like the writing style. Like, for example, Keepers of the Faith by Terror, like is a fucking hardcore anthem. If you play Berlin and Keepers of the Faith is on, the place is fucking going wild.
Right.
But like you play Keepers of the Faith in the States and it's kind of just like a, you know, I won't say whatever. It's just like in comparison,
right.
It's not
There's
even
a stark
close.
Difference.
Yeah, exactly. Not only is there a stark difference, but like in the States, there's a stark difference between Keepers of the Faith versus other songs in Terror's set. You know what I mean? So it's like, even if Terror does decide to add Keepers of the Faith to a set in the States, it's still not going to have as good of as a reaction as like something like Keep Your Mouth Shut, or like even really something else off, like Stick Tight off of the same record. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, that's a pretty big difference. It's so to come back to Stick to Your Guns. Yeah. The ones that have the more straightforward kind of like songwriting, where it's like verse, chorus, bridge, breakdown, chorus. It's like that. They love that shit because they love like catchy, anthemic kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. No, great answers as far as that. And you know, you didn't shy away from it, because I think the first time I started introducing that for like bands that have like at least 5 albums under their belt, they're like, oh, I don't know if they're all my little children. And it's like, no, I know there's songs that you're like,
that's bullshit. Anyone who says they're all my little, fuck that. That's stupid. Half of Stick to Your Gun song, I would say 60% of Stick to Your Gun songs fucking suck, and 40 of them are fucking great. So,
you know, it's like, hopefully there's days where it's maybe 50-50 and it's a passing.
Yeah, sure. No, sure.
I know a lot of those songs that we were just talking about. There's been a lot of music videos that you have shot for them. What has been what's the one video that you've had the most fun filming, and then what's the one that was the most agonizing to do?
All of them now are agonizing. Okay. I don't want to do another music video for as long as I live. They fucking
like,
suck.
All right, album, we got to do at least 3. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly, dude. It's fucking nightmare. But anything at the beginning when Stick to Your Guns is first starting, that was super exciting. I mean, even like for the This Is More video, where it's like, you know, that video was done. That video was shot like fucking 15 years ago or something. It's like, that was super exciting because it was like, that was I don't want to say the beginning of music videos, but that's when it became really like, music videos were kind of rare for our bands.
Oh, totally.
Unless you were like on a fucking label like Trustkill, who was crushing it. And like, you didn't have like 1,000 different videographers to choose from. You had like 4, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And so it was like, if you were doing a video, it meant like, oh fuck, okay, it's serious or whatever. And it was, you know, even when we first came with our videos, it was considered corny. Which it is, but like just the video itself, they were like, oh, the fact that we were doing a video is corny. But yeah, I don't know. That was a pretty fun one, just because it was, like I said, it was new, you know?
Yeah. Did you guys shoot that in like an alley?
Yeah, it was outside Chain Reaction. It was like, there's like a little smoking section inside Chain, and it was over there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I think any of the animation stuff that you guys did on Diamond, those were some of my favorite pieces of art.
Oh, sick.
That you guys kind of put
together. Hell yeah. Awesome.
Waiting for my dogs to chill the fuck out. Speaking of dogs, I know that you're a big dog person. You do a lot of like fostering of dogs. Speaking of dogs, how do you has that just been something that you've done like ever since growing up, or did that kind of come into your life a little bit later on? And how has that affected you as a musician?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So when I was really little, we had a German Shepherd named Jake. And when we moved, we had to get rid of him. And that had like a profound thing on me. And I was just like, I hated it. And so
why did you have to get rid of him?
Because of the house that we were moving from a house into an apartment.
Okay.
And the apartment didn't allow dogs.
Oh, okay. Got you. Yeah.
And also for a big German, and for a big, you know, I was like a child, like I was really little. It was like a family dog. But for like a big German Shepherd, also like going from a house that has like this little backyard to like into an apartment, like that sucks too. So we gave him to a family friend who had like a yard and shit. So that was fine. But then, like ever since then, I always wanted to get another dog, and my mom was just like, you're not going to take care of it. And then I'm going to have to take care of it. You know, the classic thing, which she's 100% right. I would have not taken care of that dog in in that time. But when I got older and when I was living in my own, that's when I was like, okay, now it's just I'm just getting dogs all the time. You know what I mean? Now in my older age, I have my blue pitty and he's awesome. He's getting up there. But we foster a lot instead of just full blown adopting. Cause it's like also realizing like, because of what I do for work, like I'm gone all the time and I don't want that responsibility to fall on my partner, Savannah. So it's like, which she doesn't mind at all. But at the same time, it's just like, you know, just being realistic about my time and how much time I can give.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. After Blue, I might take a little bit of a break, but I said that last time. I mean, and I did. I took like a 2-year break, you know what I mean? But then I got Blue, but yeah, we'll see.
My boss also has a dog named Blue. I'm just realizing that. But
yeah, Blue Pit Bulls.
Way small. It's like a wiener dog.
Yeah. Blue is a very popular dog name. And we even, to the point where I was just like, it's so common, I want to change it. But he was already an older dog and I didn't want him to have to like learn a new name or whatever. So I was just like, fuck it. We'll keep it. I
guess there's not really any other colors of the rainbow that people name their dogs after.
Right. Exactly. Maybe red. That's the only other one I've heard, but
yeah.
Okay.
I have another little segment. This is more of I'm calling this vast majority. So I have like two things that are within just being in a band lore, but also I've tried to tailor a little bit to like to stick things. So you tell me what is the vast majority and why. So the first is van breakdowns or fights during your set. Which has happened more?
Oh, van breakdown's easy.
Okay.
Easy without we break down like it's our fucking job.
Yeah. It was like on this last tour with Pennywise, like you guys broke down like
you had 4 vans.
You had 4 vans.
Yeah, but what's crazy is like people hear that and they're like, oh, you guys are just idiots and don't know how to take care of your shit. It's like we are. The second it even gets within 100 miles of an oil change, we are there. You know what I mean? Like we rotate the tires. If it's a day off, we'll just go get the van looked at. Like I look at this thing, you know what I mean? Like we try to take such good care of our shit. But yeah, like something with us in vans. There's like where I cursed us somehow. I don't know what happened.
Was that your first like proper big tour kind of back? Like I know you've done like little things with like I think Harm's Way and Initiate, like, but more in California. But that was the first, like, we're going around. And then it's like all the years spent of not touring all compiled into one.
Dude, it was fucked, man. It was straight up fucked. But it was that's what it felt like. It felt like, okay, well, you guys missed out on 2 years of breakdown, so we're gonna give them all to you in this one tour. So that's what it felt like.
Which was the best of the 4 vans, aesthetic wise?
Honestly, by the time we were on our 3rd van, I didn't even know who we were getting them from.
I just wake up and we're in a van. Sometimes it's the same one, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, straight up. Like I just basically on the first one we got when we broke down in Denver, I had to like tweet out and be like, yo, who's got a van? And this band came to our rescue and let us borrow it for a little bit, but they're like, we need it back.
Is that Mind's Eye?
No, it was
I know the band. Oh, Fox Lake.
Yes, Fox Lake.
Yeah,
Fox
shout
Lake.
out to Fox Lake. They're
exactly. They were awesome, and like they came fucking through like clutch, and so we were so grateful to them. But yeah, what we needed to drive it all the way out to the East Coast, and then one of our members needed to drive it back to Denver, and then fly back out to meet us. Oh, and then it was just chaos, but we ended up making it happen. So
yeah, what has there ever been a stint of that many vans in any other Stig tours, or is that the new standard?
That might have been that might have been the new standard. 4 on one tour is
hopefully never again.
Exactly.
Or going higher than that.
Exactly.
Okay, so van breakdowns. Do people fight a lot at Stick to Guns shows?
Like fights in the crowd, or
yeah. Like, this is some actual like pit beef that's happening.
No. Maybe we used to, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Vast majority, a power outage during the set, or someone puking on stage.
Puking on stage, and that is Chris. So Chris, our guitar player,
Chris
straight up
Rossen's a
sometimes.
puker?
Oh, dude, he has what's it called? Uh, athletic or like it's called like athletic induced asthma.
Oh,
Where if he starts getting going too much, his body and lungs or something happens where he just can't. It's really weird. But anyway, it causes him to throw up.
yikes.
And it's to the point where he might throw up on stage every single night, straight up.
Really?
It's fucking crazy.
I feel like
dude.
that was a missed opportunity for me not to know that and ask him on his interview.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he straight up has a bucket on stage in Europe where he can just be like, all right, I'm going to puke.
He's got a Ross and Ralph bucket.
Straight up, dude. It's fucking crazy. And I'm just like, dude, I feel like you should get this checked out. And he's like, I have. He's like, this is like, I'm, you know,
This
he's
is
like,
the cards I'm dealt. And this
exactly.
Is how I'm
I'm just like, this sucks.
okay, well, that was, I wasn't
Easy.
expecting that. Has
Yeah.
the power gone out ever during a Stick Your Gun set?
No.
That's honestly
Huh.
pretty impressive based off probably you playing a lot of like DIY shows back in the day to like
So-
the bigger festivals.
The only one I can remember, which I'm not, I have a pretty bad brain, is there was one time in Panama. We were playing Panama City, and the power went out, and so we had to like wait like an hour and a half to get it back going, and then yeah.
I feel like this is, I don't know if this is serendipitous that talking about the power outage and you were frozen on my end, but Jordan, is that the same for you? Oh, we're back.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool. I don't know. Did you get any of that?
Yeah, no, we got that. It was just funny how
Okay.
you were talking about the power outage and you were okay. And this is one of the last ones as far as this kind of setup.
Sure.
Someone singing happy birthday to someone on stage or someone proposing to someone on stage.
Happy birthday, easy.
Birthdays?
Yeah, the birthday ones have because especially because like if someone asks me, hey, sing happy birthday, I'll just do it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like, no. The wedding ones I can't. We try to be like, hey, I understand like this really means a lot to you, but
We're not the
but just like don't do that here as well.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like just think of something better. You can come up with something better.
I think I've only been to one show where that's happened.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to talk shit to like maybe the one person who's listening to this podcast who's done that. I think you could do a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Just
I think so too. And I think mostly it's like guys, mostly it's guys who ask me if they can do it. And I think it's just like, I kind of like understand the idea of like, yeah, the fucking singer of the band that we're here to see is like letting us come on stage and like you're making this moment in front of all these people. Like I can understand that, but at the same time, it's just like, come on.
I feel like unless like both of them like they met at a Stick to Your Guns concert, they only listened to like I feel like there's a lot of parameters where maybe it's okay, but I feel like maybe most times it's a little cheesy.
Yeah, even then, it's just like, even if that's the case, why not like just hit me up and be like, yo, would you mind sending a video of saying congratulations or something? Like, I'd rather do that than like stop the show and then give some guy like, you know what I mean? Like, here's the thing.
Let me do a free cameo for you, bro. But versus me.
Straight up, just because it's like, come on, like this is about all of us right now, but like, don't make it just about you. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
so as far as like, Steak has a new record coming out. There's been a couple singles that have come out. There's been a lot of like, you know, dogs on this podcast, but there's some dogs kind of subtly kind of placed in there. So as far as Spectre goes, like what can you kind of say about that? And maybe what are you most like stoked / proud about that body of work coming down the pipeline here?
Just the fact that like we made the record so deliberately. It's like we went in to make what we made. And a lot of times I go into the studio and it's just like, I always say shit like, yeah, I didn't know the record was going to end up like this. You know what I mean? It almost just like somewhere along the creative process, it takes a right turn or a left turn or whatever. But this record, I feel like we went in at the beginning of the record to go and make this one. And that's the product that we ended up with. And we were super focused and we were super just like eyes on the prize about it. And yeah, like that was meaningful to me, just because it's like I felt like we were working in such unison with one another. And yeah, like that, we just got to go in and get the job done. As far as like what I hope people take away from the record is just like kind of this stuff that we're talking about. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, we can make life better. Like that's the whole thing. And it's like, we can, like, it's just, that's all it is. It's like, it's that easy. Like, I hate to say it. It's like, it's not easy, but it's like, at the same time, it is, it's that easy. You know what I mean? And I hope that people start to kind of stop talking so much and listen more. And I hope that people start to like validate each other's personal experiences, while at the same time not allowing your lived experience to like dictate what should happen to other people. And I hope that we all stop not necessarily arguing with each other, because arguing is like a good way to like kind of make some breakthroughs. But like, people have become so individualist and have become to believe in individualism almost as like an ideology, where it's just about the like worship of the self and whatever I need, because what I need is the most important thing. And it doesn't really matter what you need, like all that kind of shit. Like, we got to start pushing that shit to the side and start condemning that kind of thinking, because it's just like, what affects other people outside of your home is eventually going to come to affect you. You know what I mean? Like, we are an ecosystem, the same way that the fucking sun and photosynthesis works with plants, and they need rain, and then it creates clouds so that it can rain on the plants. And like, we are a part of that same kind of ecosystem. And no matter what kind of economic or socio-political power that we put in place of society, like, it needs to reflect that. It needs to reflect that this whole thing is cyclical, and this is all an ecosystem, and that people are amazing and they will adapt even into the worst conditions imaginable. But to push against that, you know what I mean? Like, let's adapt and let's grow and let's build something better. That's the whole thing behind Spectre. It's like, we have this new world that is peeking behind what is currently in place, and it's haunting us. You know what I mean? Because we can see it, but there's this gigantic barrier in the way of us achieving it. You know what I mean? And that shit haunts us. It haunts us every day. You know what I mean? We're all fucking depressed and miserable, and we don't know why. And I'm trying to say, there's a reason why. We just have to do some work. You know what I mean? And we have to work together, and we have to try to put these stupid little petty things that we think are so important to the side, and maybe put a pin in those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's
we'll come back to it, but there's like,
right.
Yeah, bigger fish to fry.
Right. Exactly. Like, what is really the most important thing? And I think the most important thing is making sure that we are attentive to what we are measuring. And what should we be measuring? Adequate housing, healthcare, education, freedom of movement, food, all of these basic things that we deserve. We deserve these things. It's not like charity. It's not given to us. It's not granted upon us by some government. No, these are things that we deserve.
Right.
And things that we have worked for and already paid for. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's the biggest part.
Yeah, I love that quote that you brought up, because I think, and this is kind of a quote from another kind of party to kind of intermingle it. Like, I think you find what you're looking for. If you're like just trying to just be negative, and you're looking for the drama, and you're looking for the doom and gloom of the world, like, there's tons of content and stuff to feed that. But if you're looking for the positive, and you're trying to like be optimistic and try that, there's lots of that to find as well. And I think,
for sure.
You know, I think if you're not being intentional, kind of tying it back to like being intentional about like what you guys did with this record, if you're being intentional about like what you're actually like, I am going to try and find the good in the world, and how I can expand that in my own efforts. Like, it's out there. But I think a lot of people just stick it in neutral, and they let whatever comes to them, and then they decide that's how things are.
No, 100%. 100%. And that's what I totally agree on. I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. And that's basically the whole thing. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's like I say in Weapon, you know, my hatred fuels the love in me. It's like, I see the world, I see the doom and gloom shit that you're talking about, and I hate it so much that I'm going to take it in as that. And I'm going to try to what I project out be better. You know what I mean? Be better than that, you know? So anyway, I actually straight up might need to wrap up. So I don't know how much more you had left, but
sure. Okay. Couple other questions.
Yeah.
And because we're total topic change, have you ever covered one of your band members in chocolate?
Is there a specific thing that you know about that I can't
Chris
remember?
might have alluded to some kind of chocolate situations, and I was like, okay, there's
no. Here's the thing. So I'm like the snacky one.
Yeah,
I just love to snack. But obviously, I don't ever really normally go get chocolate from gas stations because I'm vegan, and normally the shit that they sell at gas stations isn't vegan.
Sure.
And so Chris was lying on a bench one night on this most recent tour, and there was chocolate on the bench, and it got all over him. And of course, everyone immediately points to me because they're like, Jesse's like the snackiest motherfucker ever. It was probably something he was eating,
right.
And yeah, it got blamed on me forever. And then it came out that our bass player was carrying around a gigantic bag of chocolate covered almonds.
Oh.
And I was like, see, right there, dude.
I was framed.
I know, exactly. They tried to frame me, but I don't blame them.
It is a goal of mine anytime I have someone on to like hit up their band members and be like, what's the most like out of context thing that I can ask this person? I would just totally throw it off. And he's like, ask him why I was covered in chocolate. I was like, just leave it at that, and I'll leave Jesse to fill in the rest.
But it didn't just happen once; it happened twice on two different benches. He got chocolate all over him.
Oh wow!
But it's like, yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'll say that. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Respect. A couple other questions, Jesse. The last kind of official question before we start to do plugs and whatnot, I ask someone to tell me a favorite Mosh related story to kind of wrap up the episode. And that could be anything that's like first to your head. Could have been like, I moshed on someone, I got moshed on. It was at a Stig show. It was just a random show. It was at whatever's first to your dome is how we start to head towards the close.
The best shape I've ever been in my entire life was when we were doing a European tour, and the tour was Terror, Born from Pain, Stick to Your Guns, Trapped Under Ice. That was a tour. This was 2009, 2010, 2011. I don't remember. 2000 something.
Somewhere in there.
Exactly. And every single band on that bill was especially at that time was one of my favorite hardcore bands. You know, Trapped Under Ice was one of my favorite hardcore bands. Terror to this day is my favorite hardcore band, and Born from Pain is just hard as fucking nails. And they're they're a European hardcore band. Mm-hmm. So literally every single night of that tour, and it was probably 30 nights long, I moshed for Trapped Under Ice the whole set. Then I would go play. Then I would mosh for Born from Pain. Then I would mosh from Terror. And it's crazy because literally the actual transformation of my body from the beginning of that tour to the end, dude, was fucking insane. People are like, dude, you look ripped. And it's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm fucking pitting every single night for every band while playing my own shit. And this is back when Scott's neck and back were a little in better condition than they are right now.
Sure.
So we also had a run club. We were running every day. So it was like fucking boot camp, but like, yeah, that's like the first thing that popped in my head where it was just like, man, I like back in those days, I would just like mosh for every fucking band.
I just hope someone can Photoshop you just overly ripped. Just like any of those memes that's just like Pikachu, but it looks like Hercules.
Looking like The Rock and shit, dude.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a great story. I love that there was a moment where you were moshing and playing for 30 days straight.
It was fucking sick. It was awesome.
Bananas. Well, Jesse, this has been a great chat. Again, all your links and the band links and all the stuff to Spectre and the new album will be in the show notes. If there's anything that you want to shout out, send the people off with, or anything you want to plug, the floor is yours.
Not really. I mean, like I say this every time a record comes out that it is our greatest work. And this time I just don't even care what anyone says about it. This is, without a doubt, the greatest Stick to Your Guns record we've put out. So I hope you check it out. And also, like, just we can have differences of opinion. We can have all these certain, these things. There are certain things I just simply will not compromise on. But I think right now, moving forward in my fight to try to unite working and poor people of the world is let's just find where we do overlap and let's just work on that. Let's find where our common ground is and let's just fucking work on that. You know what I mean? I understand that socialism and communism are really bad words here in America. But let's work through that. I want to know why you think it's bad. I want to know all that kind of shit. So let's just talk about it. If you come to me in good faith, I will respond to you in good faith. If you come to me gnarly, I might come at you gnarly, but I want to work on that as well. So
yeah, totally. I couldn't have said it better for myself. Shout out to Jesse's Mosh gloves. Shout out to anyone in the comments who are gonna just go off the rails. Shout out to Chris who's listening. And shout out to you, Jesse. This has been a awesome conversation. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for having me.